Hello, everyone, and welcome to Africa Fire Mission's weekly virtual training session. My name is Mike. I'm a project coordinator with Africa Fire Mission, and we're so happy you took time out of your busy schedules and spending your bundles to be with us here for today's training. Today we've got Captain Jeff Jacobs with us. Jeff's a great guy. He's been working with us for about a year here at Africa Fire Mission. He was in Kenya. So some of y'all may recognize him from last year's training symposium. So we're super appreciative of Jeff for joining us today. If you stick around for at least 70% of today's training, we're going to send you guys a certificate of attendance. That's usually about 40 or 45 minutes. Keep an eye on the chat. I'll post a message in the chat where you can find our Google Drive folder. It's going to have today's training and all of the other trainings that we've hosted so far this year. If you get cut off from your connection or you can't stick around for the whole time, I would encourage you to check that out. If you attend the training there, watch the video and answer a few questions about the training. I'll send you a certificate of attendance for that as well. After we complete today's training, we'll have a tea time, which is a time where you can stick around, ask a few more questions about today's training or anything else that may be on your mind. So I encourage you to stick around for that as well. I think, Richard, I'm going to pass it over to you if you're ready, sir, and you could share a few words of encouragement with us, folks. This is Richard Kachina. He's one of Africa Fire Mission's volunteer fire safety advocates. Take it away, sir.
Yeah, thank you so much, Chief Mike. Thank you so much, everyone, for participating in the lesson today. We really appreciate the effort. We really appreciate your time, and be blessed. Feel blessings everywhere you are. We really value you. My word of encouragement today comes from an experience of myself. Sometimes back, I attended a training because I really needed to improve on my skills, to work something out of my skills so that I can bring it back to my station. And after that, I ended up getting a letter of interdiction. So my point is sometimes we'll do things to empower ourselves, we as the firefighters, because we have the betterment of the community in our minds, we have the heart to help, but the next step is not always very simple. So let us continue earning this. Let us continue getting skills that will enable us be the best firefighters that we can ever have. So in any time you have an opportunity to learn a skill, please take it, because we always say if you keep on not adding a skill, you keep on relaxing, it's like you are dormant. In the fire service, there are new things, like we know we meet electrical vehicles here and there in our stations, outside the station, outside the country. So one, let's keep on fighting. Let's keep on improving ourselves, our skills, as we always do here on Wednesday. And the other thing is, have that positive vibe in you. It's gonna work miracles, it works. Have a good time. Let's run today. Thank you so much, Chief Mike.
Thank you, Richard. We appreciate you being here with us today and sharing those words of encouragement. All right, everyone. At this point in time, I'm going to pass it over to Jeff to get started on his training about decision making and go no go. So take it away, sir.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Chief. I really appreciate the introduction. The words of encouragement is great. Good evening, everyone. Good morning for me. It is 6 o'clock in the morning here, and it is a little chilly outside here. We're getting into winter, and being from California, anything below 70 degrees is incredibly cold for me. So if you see me shaking, one, it's because I'm excited. Two, it's because I'm really cold. So let's start today. I'm going to get my PowerPoint up. Bear with me for the technical part of this. just to confirm, Mike, do you see just the slide or do you see the whole presenter mode?
Whole presenter mode.
Okay, let's fix that. We'll go from here.
Good.
Awesome. Thank you. Awesome. So let me first start by telling everyone, hey, how honored I am to be here. I'm very honored that you would take the time out of your day, the money out of your pocket to be here and listen to the likes of me. A little introduction about myself. I'm a captain with Santa Clara County Fire Department, which probably more familiar with the term Silicon Valley. We house Apple and Google and Facebook, all those people in my valley. So we're very diverse county. We have very rural areas, very metropolitan areas. And I've been in the fire service for 15 years. Before that, I was in the Army where I was a sergeant and I was a medic on a helicopter. So this whole go, no go risk management theory is based off my experiences, one as a firefighter, but two as a sergeant in the Army. So my goal today is to give you small bits of knowledge so that you can start developing a system. Now, go, no goes are so diverse. There's so many go, no go situations that we can't talk about every single one in just 1 hour. So my goal is to give you guys a system where you can develop your own answers to your own go, no go situations. And that's going to happen both at the fire station and on the fire ground. So first we're going to go over theory. Then we're going to go over some tactics, some things to make your life a little bit easier, go over a couple scenarios, and end with a question and answer. All right, let's first define go, no go situations. Go, no go situations are just a rapid risk versus reward decision making process. All right, so risk versus reward. Let's talk about our reward first. What is our reward? Well, as firefighters, our reward is life. That is our responsibility. The safety and protection of our citizens is our moral obligation to the community. So what is our reward? Someone else's life. What else are we trying to accomplish? Save property. Someone's property can be their livelihood. I'm sure you guys see every single day. All their possessions are inside their house or near their house. And if they were to lose that, it would be detrimental to their life from that point forward. So property is very important. Scene stabilization, making a big problem a small problem and making a small problem isolated is a goal worthy of accomplishment, so that maybe a fire in a house doesn't spread to other houses. And at the end of the day, the environment as well. We only have one Earth. We can't mess it up that bad. If that means we can do measures to stop a hazmat leak, to stop contaminants to get into the drinking water, from someone getting exposed to gasoline, making them sick, that's a pretty good accomplishment as well. That's our reward. That's what we are here for. So what's the risk? Well, the risk is death, our death, right? If we make a bad decision, if we overcommit, if we rely on something and it ends up failing, the risk could be our death, which is very impactful, right? The other risk is injury. An injury can be, I hurt my finger. More importantly, an injury could be, I lost my leg. I can't walk normal now. One of our workers here in my department fell off of a second story, and now he's paralyzed from the hips down. Is that death? No. But does that impact him the rest of his life? Yeah, he can't work as a firefighter now. He can't live the life that he was living before. So injury is very important as well. And then at the managerial level, I saw there's a couple officers, but probably a couple chiefs on here as well. On the managerial side is decrease firefighting service capabilities, right? If we go and we risk, we put in risk a fire engine, some hose, an SCBA, some tools, and we lose those are tools that we cannot use at the next fire. Obviously, we fight wildland fires here in California. We took a strike team of engines out. Something bad happened. Someone made a wrong decision. They didn't read their cues right. They didn't do a size up, and we ended up losing one of the rigs. Because we lost that fire engine on a wildland fire nowhere near our area, it impacted our service capabilities here in our department. There was a fire station now that didn't have a rig that could respond to wildland fires. Several years go by, a couple measures, we were able to get it back, get another one back, but there's still several years where there's an area that was unprotected because we risked a fire engine and we lost that fire engine. So the kind of starting off with the theory stuff, the more formal stuff, right? This is what we, this is that college level stuff, right? This is when we go take a class, a business class, a leadership class, and they talk about risk management processes. This is what they talk about. The 5-step risk management process. This is going to be one of the key points here. The risk management process is a great process. However, it is not used in the first 3 to 5 minutes of an incident. The risk management process needs time. You need time to work through the steps. You need time to identify and analyze and to implement risk management portions. All of that takes time because we have to think about it. We have to write stuff down. It takes time. Now, that's not saying for those chief officers who are on here, the senior captains, the leadership portions, that doesn't mean when you arrive and you start setting up command, you start building this incident out, that you can't use the 5-step risk management process. My battalion chiefs do, right? If I go to a fire, I go on duty later on today. If I go to a fire, my rank, my level, I'm doing immediate actions, right? I'm doing my first 3 to 5 minutes. My battalion chief who comes behind me later on, that's when he's going to stop. He's going to slow his brain down. He's not going to commit into action. He's going to step back and he's going to go through his risk management process, right? He's going to read the scene. He's going to analyze that risk. He's going to start writing things down and start making a risk management plan. That's his job on the fire, is to kind of keep me safe with that risk management process. Me, my first 3 to 5 minutes, we're going to go over other theories, but mine's more of that rapid decision making. So my recommendation, if you're taking notes, I'd write this down. Step 1, identify the risk. That's where we are going to do our scene size up. We're going to expand on these in the next couple slides, but step 2, analyze the risk. The difference between identifying and analysis is knowledge and experience. I can identify black, dark smoke. The analysis, though, is saying that dark, black smoke is going to turn to fire soon. I'm going to evaluate the risk. Then step 4, I'm going to treat the risk, as in I'm going to implement a plan that either reduces the risk or increases my safety. And then step 5, I'm going to monitor the plan that I developed and modify it as necessary as that scene changes. Move my little. All right, so that first step, right? Identify. Step 1, identify. Step 2, analyze. So how do we do that in the fire service, right? That is our initial scene size up and our continuing scene size up. So there are hundreds of scene size up acronyms out there. Use what you're comfortable with. There was Cole was wealth, which every one of those things means something. I think Chicago uses it. I don't know anyone else who does. It's really long. Slicers is a real big one, especially with UL and NIST. The one that I use, that honestly I just came up with because I didn't like any of the other ones, was below. So when I do my scene size up, I show up and B, I'm looking at my building, what construction type, layout, collapse potential. Then I'm going to look at the extent of the fire. So if you look at the picture on the left-hand side, the extent of my fire is fairly minimal. It looks like it's possibly 1 bedroom, maybe 2, on the first story of a 3-story building. My location, again, first story of a 3-story building in a corner, probably in what I can see in a bedroom, right? So I talked about my building, the extent of my fire, the location of my fire, my occupants. Those are my people. That part of my scene size up is very important. Where are my people and how are they being impacted by the fire? So again, using the picture on the left as an example, where's my victim? Well, I see a victim right now. He's in a 2nd-story window. How is he being impacted by that fire? Right now, fairly minimal. I don't see any smoke coming out from behind him. I don't see the exterior smoke or fire hitting him. And realistically, he's not that high off the ground. He could hang from that window and drop 3 feet and be just fine. But what I don't see are the other occupants inside that building. I think we can all agree that that looks like an apartment building of some type. I think we can all agree that apartment buildings have people in them all times of the day. So my victim potential is high because it's an apartment building. So now talking about my water needs. I work on an engine company. I've worked on an engine company most of my career. Water, hoses, and engine company operations are my slice of the pie. So that's why I put the water needs in there. This fire here, I can use a smaller hand line. You know, I'm only gonna need a couple 100 feet of it. I can make my attack fairly easily. So now the analysis part. So we've identified all those things, right? We've identified the building's a 3-story apartment. We've identified the extent, it's fairly small. We identified the location of it is that 1st-story corner. And we identified that there's victims we see and victims we don't see. And we've identified we need a small line. The analysis part, though, the 2nd step is taking it further. It's taking the background knowledge and experience that we have and predicting the future. Analysis is predicting how this future is going to go. So just based off my experience and my knowledge, I can look at this fire on the left-hand side and predict that that fire is going to spread vertically from those windows, that the fire coming out of the building is going to shatter those windows on the 2nd story and creep back into that 2nd story. I can also predict through analysis and my background knowledge and experience that that fire is also going to spread horizontal because it's we have a fully developed fire, and with the pressures and with the smoke, it's going to start spreading throughout that entire involved apartment. Because now that I made my analysis, I can start evaluating my risk. So looking back at that picture, looking back at that picture, evaluating my risk is dependent on what my job is. If my job is to get the victim out of the 2nd-story window, my risk is fairly minimal, right? Because I predicted that fire is probably going to stay away from that victim. I predicted that he is capable and ambulatory to help me get him out that window. So my risk is pretty low. But if my job is to search that involved apartment, now my risk is different because I've already identified and analyzed that fire is going to spread horizontally inside that apartment. So my risk is different. When we start evaluating risk, there's 2 factors. There's severity and probability. So severity is how bad is it going to be? Hey, what's going on, brother? Probability is what's the likelihood of it actually occurring? So is there the severity of right now an asteroid landing on me and killing me? I would say that's pretty catastrophic, at least for me, right? What's the probability of that? Almost non-existent. So should I walk around everywhere with an anti-asteroid umbrella? No, the risk isn't there. But the probability of me tripping down the stairs outside as I go to my car because of me is pretty high. I'm not the most athletic guy in the world. But what's the severity of it? Embarrassment. I'm probably not going to get hurt. It's going to be in front of all my friends. The severity is fairly low. So that's how we evaluate risk. So once we identified all the risk, once we analyze the risk, as in we're predicting what's going to happen in the future, we evaluate it based off the severity and the probability of it. Now we can start to treat it, right? We're going to treat our highest risk first. And then we're going to move from there. So just like the picture we showed earlier, if my job was to search that involved apartment, my risk is that fire, the heat, the smoke. I evaluated that it's a fairly severe risk because of the probability and the severity of it. And now I have to treat it. Well, treating for us is fairly easy, right? We're going to put water on that. If I put water on it, the fire goes out. We can get the smoke out of there either by natural ventilation or horizontal ventilation. And now that's taken my risk and put it way down on the severity scale of things. I've treated my risk. Now I can search that apartment safely. So treating the risk and then monitor and review. We're just keeping that scene size up that we did initially. We're just continuously letting that go and go and go and go. So I probably should have said this in the beginning, guys. If you guys have any questions, if I'm going too fast, if I'm going too slow, if you have any questions, throw it up in the chat. I am monitoring it as well. Awesome. So our five-step risk management process. It's a great tool for commander, for that safety officer, for that later arriving officer, right? We're going to use our 5-step risk management process as well as our 7-step decision method. You can write this down. We're not going to spend a lot of time on it. It's just knowing that everything we do on the Fireground is a decision. Just like, if I have to search that apartment, that's a decision that I made. So I've identified my decision. I've gathered my relevant information. I've identified my alternatives. Maybe I don't search it or wait till later on, weighing the evidence, choosing the alternatives, taking action, reviewing my decision. I'll leave this up for a second for those of you taking notes. Write this down real quick because it's going to come into play later on once we start going over how you're going to use this in your everyday life and on the streets. So again, as you're writing this down, you can just listen. 7-step decision method. It's a great tool. It's really good for pre-planning, which we'll go over. But in that first 3 to 5 minutes upon your guys' arrival, are we going to use it? No, we're going to use something else. But this is great for that later arriving officer, the chief officer, and really important in pre-planning. I'll leave it up just a couple more seconds. Awesome. So let's talk about that first 3 to 5 minutes, which I think why the majority of us are here, right? We show up, we get off the rig, we take the look, and now we have to make a decision because that's what the public expects out of us. The public expects that when we get there, we make things better. That is why they're paying our salaries. So how do we do that? If we're not going to use the 5-step risk management process, if we're not going to use the 7-step decision-making process, what do we use? Well, let's go over some characteristics real quick. So what are some characteristics of decision making in that first 3 to 5 minutes? What are some labels we can put on it? One, it's time sensitive. We got to make a decision. Can that decision be do nothing? It can be, but we've consciously made that decision, right? So that first 3 to 5 minutes, it is time sensitive. It has to be rapid. The other important characteristic for us is it's high risk. Our job is inherently high risk. So we have to make a high risk decision with very little time. Talking about our characteristics, we can take those high risk time considerations and put them into a chart that makes our life a little bit more easy to understand. So if we look in this first square right here, if we have a long time to respond, as in we don't have to make a decision this second, and the decision we have to make is fairly low risk, that's easy. We can use the standardized decision model, right? Our risk, 5-step risk and our 7-step decision, we have time. We can brainstorm. We can ask for help. We can seek subject matter experts. Now, if we go to short time response, but a low risk, that's when we go through an abbreviated decision method. So maybe not do the 7 steps, but kind of mentally just go through them real quick. Maybe we're not asking other people. Maybe we're not brainstorming. We're probably not getting subject matter experts input, but we're quickly doing that 7-step, quickly doing the 5-step. We're just not seeking help from other people. Now down in the high risk, where the majority of our life lives, right? High risk, but we have a long time response. These are the hazmat calls that you guys go on to. These are the motor vehicle accidents that you guys go on to. These are the building collapse, the traumas, the active shooters, things like that. This is where, due to the high risk, we need policy development, right? That long time response allows us to look at the policy or look at the checkoff sheet or look at the guide to help make us decisions. So I'll give you an example. For something that I use, that long time response, high risk for us is hazmat. Because it's a longer time response, I can look at my checkoff sheet. I can pull up what we call an ICS form that goes over how to respond to a hazmat call. And I can make sure I hit all of those steps before committing people into a risky environment. That allows us to have a standardized response. Because the hazmat call I go to at 1 o'clock in the afternoon is still as deadly at 3 a.m. in the morning when I'm tired and my brain isn't awake yet. So that long time response allows us to look at a check sheet, to look at a guide, to look at policies. Now, the danger part, the short time frame, high risk. These are those go, no go situations. This is where recognition, prime decision making is going to come important, which is our next slide. This is where that knowledge and experience is going to help our brain pick the right decision. Okay? No, that didn't work. Awesome. Recognition, prime decision making. Don't worry about writing that formula down. That's there just to that we can extrapolate stuff from. So recognition, prime decision making. I'm a huge fan of it. Honestly, my master's degree is based all around it. I learned it in the military. I've used it in the fire service. I teach it in the academies. I teach it to officers. Big fan of the recognition, prime decision making. So my favorite story about it is how it was invented. So the U.S. military came to a psychologist and they said, here's a lot of money. We need you to figure out how leaders make decisions under stress. And so that psychologist took all the money and he goes, well, if I need to learn how people make decisions under stress, I need to go talk to people who make decisions under stress all the time. So he went to the fire department of New York and he rode around with their battalion chiefs and their company officers for months and just observed how they did it. And when he asked them, how did you make that decision? Every officer gave the same answer. Why did you throw that ladder? Why did you take that hose line in? Why did you make a push? Why did you go defensive? And those officers always gave the same answer. He goes, well, it was the only decision I had. It was the only right decision. It was the only thing possible. He figured out that people weren't making decisions under stress. People weren't cognitively making decisions when there was low time and high stress. What was happening is that when they arrived on scene, just like you guys, their eyes and their brain took in all the information. All that information has little cues in it, little flags, little red flags, little green flags, has little cues that we see when our brain sees as we take in information. And then our brain doesn't go to the decision-making part of our brain. It goes over here to the pattern part of our brain. And our brain goes, I see this fire. What's a similar fire that I've been on in the past that went well? And then it takes that scenario that we've already done and then puts it onto this one and just automatically makes the decision, right? I'll give you an example. The very first fire that I went on as a company officer, I pull up and it's just a single family house that we have here, like a house in the suburbs. Smoke coming out the front door, obvious fire in the kitchen. When I didn't sit there in the front seat and go, okay, I'm going to evaluate my risk. I'm going to analyze it. I'm going to identify. No, my brain went, I've been on a kitchen fire before as a firefighter. And I know the ones that went well had a line through the front door, had someone searching for people, and needed venting the smoke. So I didn't make a decision. I already knew what the decision was. I just put it into place. That's how recognition prime decision making happens. We do a mental size up. We recognize cues, as in those red flags, green flags from our environment. We take all those cues, develop a pattern that we've seen in the past, and then we just overlay those decisions onto the new one. So why is this so important to us? Why do we use recognition prime decision making in the first 3 to 5 minutes? Or how do we do that? Well, first one is cues. We have to develop cues. So the picture top right, some cues that I see from that fire are a couple big ones, right? My first cue is I see a victim in the window. I know from running fires and training that he needs a ladder. We got to get a ladder up there to that victim. The other cue that I see is smoke on that the window to the left of that victim. I know from training, past experiences, that we need to get a hose line in there. And then ideally, we're going to squirt water from the outside into that apartment to knock down that fire so we can get that victim. Some cues at the lower left, right? Fully involved house. The cue that I'm seeing, as my knowledge and experience, the survivability of anyone inside that front left part of that house is 0. Some more cues, lower right cue, big fire, right? I got a fire on the right side of that building. But more importantly, the other cues that I see are all these other windows in that house, in that lower right. They don't have any smoke staining on them. I don't see any smoke coming out that front door. My pattern recognition is saying, if there's no smoke stain on that window and there's no smoke coming out that front door, that fire is isolated from the rest of that house, and it is safe for me to go search that house. Also part of the cues is knowing our buildings. Oh, of course now it works. Let's go back. Uh-oh. I'm breaking things. There we go. Other cues can be the building itself. So top right photo, that's an apartment that is a block and a half from my fire station. We go there all the time. So if there's a fire in that apartment, I already have cues built into my brain because I've been in that building so many times. I know where the hallways are. I know how the apartments are laid out. I know where the garbage chutes are. I know where the standpipes are. I already have cues built for that apartment before the fire ever started. So how do we affect go, no go situations? More importantly, the question that we're going to ask ourselves is how are we going to improve our recognition prime decision making? And we're going to do it in two, we're going to impact it in two of those areas. Well, three of those areas. We're going to improve our mental size up. We're going to improve our cue identification, our flags. We're going to be able to identify those easier. And we're going to improve our pattern recognition. So we're going to go through three different things we can do to improve it. The main, the thing I want to stress is all three of those things that we do, our mental size up, our cue recognition, and our pattern recognition, all three of those things can be improved with training before the fire ever begins. When I was young, I went and did training similar to this, and the instructor said something that impacted me for the rest of my fire service career. He told me that you should never show up to an emergency and it be the first time you're on that emergency. And that hit me hard. And what he was trying to say is, I should have practiced that emergency before I went there. I should practice apartment fires. I should practice restaurant fires and garage fires and shed fires. I should know what to do on those by practicing before I ever get there. If I show up to an emergency and I go, wow, this is the first time I'm seeing this, then I wasn't doing my job when I was back at the station. So, mental size up. How can we improve that? Well, we improve it by knowing what we're looking at. We improve it. You're okay. You're okay. Hey, Pat. Good morning. Good, buddy. We improve that mental size up by knowing what we're looking at, by going around to the buildings in your area and knowing those buildings, by understanding fire, by taking the classes like you're in right now for fire behavior and fire dynamics and tactics. You have to know what you're looking at to be able to size it up. So cue recognition. How do we improve cue recognition? Those flags. Again, by knowing what you're looking at and knowing what's going to happen in the future. Just like the 5-step risk management process, we have to be able to identify and analyze what's happening. You can only do that if you know what you're looking at. I can go to a fire right now and I have a bunch of cues in my brain that I know what I'm looking at and I can predict the future. But if I go to, a nuclear reactor, I have zero cues of what's going on. As far as I know, it's magic making that nuclear reactor work, right? Because I've never been trained on what I'm looking at. Just like a nuclear physicist who is obviously incredibly smart, if he came to a structure fire, he'd have no clue what he's looking at. He just figures there's fire, it's hot, people are here to put it out, right? Because he's never been trained on those cues. He doesn't know what he's looking at. Same thing with us. Structure fires are our job. We need to have the knowledge and the experience to identify those cues. Pattern recognition. This is where training is going to come big. Pattern recognition comes with simulations, comes with running drills. Two of my guys that are in my company are getting ready to take the captain's test. Guess what we do every single day for 1 hour a day? We run simulations. And it is easy as sitting around the kitchen table and talking. And I'll tell them, Dave, you have a 2-story house, second story is fully involved. What are you going to do? and running those mental simulations using just our imagination and me giving a good picture, he can run through those simulations and start to develop those patterns. Mental simulations, actual simulations, and drills starts to build that pattern recognition. Take, for example, tying our shoe. When we teach kids how to tie a shoe, it's a very cognitive heavy task. My son, he's young right now, and we're going over how to tie a shoe. That's why I bring this up. When I teach him how to tie a shoe, we are both really focused on a shoe, and we're doing very deliberate movement until he can get his shoe tied. But for all of us, we're older now. None of us think about tying our shoe. We just bend down, tie our shoe, and move on. We don't even think about it because we've done it so many times. That pattern is already tattooed into our brain. Same thing with your emergency calls. I've run so many kitchen fires, I don't really have to think anymore. I go there, I recognize kitchen fire, we're doing it, just like tying my shoe, right? So that's how we're going to improve pattern recognition. Mental simulations, actual simulations, and drills. So when we do train, make it realistic, whether the use of our imagination or use with stuff on the drill ground. And this can be simple stuff like that picture. That's just scrap wood that's been laying around, and they make a very tight area where they have to stay low because of the heat, and it's a hallway. Is that simple? Is that something we can all do? Yeah. And it's quick, it's easy, but it's realistic. The mental simulations, when we're out in the public, which I highly recommend to everyone to get out into the public. If you're the fire service, you should be out in the public. They should be able to see you. Walk around. Stop at a building. Take your junior guy or your guy who's getting ready to take a new position and be like, hey, this building right here, if there's a fire on the 3rd story, what are you going to do? And start running through those mental simulations. PPE. This is going to help in our risk management process because it's going to help with that risk mitigation. We are able to go interior to help get victims because we have the PPE to do it. Now, if we don't have the PPE to do it, maybe we only have one SCBA, maybe I don't have bunker pants, then it limits my ability to go in there and effect the rescue. I have to base what risk I'm willing to incur or take on based off my PPE. If I don't have an SCBA, I'm probably not going to go into a super smoky environment. But if I don't have a BA, can I crawl underneath the smoke? Yeah. Can I jump in a window real quick, throw someone out, jump back out? Maybe. You have to make that risk assessment on your own. If we don't have full PPE, our risk is going to be a little bit less. If we have full PPE, maybe our risk is going to be a little bit more. So if we have the PPE, take care of it. It's a big thing. Make sure it's clean, make sure it's serviceable. If there's rips, sew them up, right? Make sure that you can use them. Make sure you know where they are and that it's ready for response. Excuse me. Understand your PPE limitations. If I am in full PPE, I'm lucky enough to have a SCBA, my turnouts and everything, doesn't mean I get to walk through fire. That stuff still burns. You're still going to get burned. Understand the limitations. Just like understand the limitations if I don't have a BA. Understand the limitations if I don't have bunker pants or boots. I have to understand the limitations that I have. The other part of it is when you have PPE, train in your PPE. Get your body used to doing those tasks and making those decisions while you're in your PPE, because you're not going to show up to an emergency incident and be in street clothes. You're going to be in your PPE. So start practicing like we're playing. The other part is just training your PPE. It's just a part about being uncomfortable. There's not a lot of emergency scenes that I can think where I'm completely comfortable. I'm going to be in some type of PPE. I'm going to be in structured PPE or violent PPE or hazmat. I'm going to be uncomfortable. That's just the nature of our job. You have to be comfortable being uncomfortable. And a lot of that comes with just training in your gear until you're used to it, until it becomes home. some safe tactics, right? So we've gone through all of our stuff. Excuse me, sorry, again, it's cold here. We did our recognition by decision making, or we did our 5-step risk method. And now we have to make a decision of what we're going to do. I can't go over all the things we can do. I just want to go over a couple of them because of the more high frequency stuff, right? One of my favorite sayings, it comes from the military. If you're not cheating, you're not trying very hard. So what does cheating look like on a fire scene? If there's fire blowing out of a window, I'm just going to put water in through that window. There's no reason why I should be impacted by heat, smoke, and zero visibility if I can just hit the fire from the outside. If you're not cheating, you're not trying very hard. If I have a victim in a window and I know he's in that room somewhere, I'm not going to go through the front door, go through the whole house, go upstairs, go into that bedroom, and then drag him all the way back out. No, I'm just going to throw a ladder, jump in, grab him, throw him out, and climb back down that ladder. So make your life easier. Follow the path of least resistance. So use the reach of your water stream. This is one that I see a lot. When we're taught to make an advance onto a fire with a hose line, for some reason, we're taught to go all the way up there, get face to face and just like brawl it out. No. The water coming out of our hose, that stream is a dozen meters or more. I can stand at the front door, use the reach of my stream, and knock down a bedroom fire down the hallway. Those apartments I showed you earlier, one of our key things we do in those apartments is sit at the front door with the nozzle. We can put out 80% of that apartment from the front door just by using our stream and not take the impact from the heat, not take the smoke, staying low, staying underneath that smoke, using our tools to our advantage. Hitting the fire from the outside or from a safe place, staying low underneath the smoke. I know SCBAs are a big problem. I know getting SCBA bottles filled is a big problem. So stay low underneath that smoke. Let neutral planes develop. That's where that hot smoke stays high, cool air stays low. Stay below that neutral plane. If it's starting to get a little bit more active, get out of there. But when we start going through some of our scenarios, you're going to see there's a lot of rescues that we can get without ever having to put on our SCBA. And the last one is isolate the fire from the smoke. And that could be just closing the door. If you have one guy with an SCBA who has some air in his bottle, him just going in and closing the door to the bedroom that's on fire can make the rest of the apartment so much better by just doing that one thing. Just by isolating the fire away from where the victims are, right? Let me pull up my chat box, see if anyone had any questions. Awesome. See how we're doing on time? We're doing good. All right. Let's move into some scenarios. All right. I tried to get structures that are more familiar with you guys'. I wanted to say this one was in Nairobi. Anyways, most important thing about this is my coloring technique. Please understand I'm a fire captain, not an artist. So we're going to pretend the orange is fire, the black is smoke. First in unit, right? I'm going to show up. I'm going to identify the cue that there is a fire in the middle of a span of houses that are all interconnected. My pattern recognition tells me that fire is going to spread to the other ones. Now, my decision, my go, no go, is I'm not going to go into the unit that's fully involved on fire until I have it knocked down with water or unless I have an SCBA. But it is a go for me to search all these other houses. Because if there is smoke in there, it's fairly light smoke, right? My risk is minimal, okay? So this house, we show up, this house, first 3 to 5 minutes, right? I'm identifying that there is a fire in there somewhere. I don't know where, but the smoke is fairly light, and I have a very distinct neutral plane. Underneath all that smoke is clean air. For me, that's a go. I'm going to go in there. I might have a minute. I might have 2 minutes. I'm going to get in there and I'm going to sprint on my hands and knees. I'm going to get a quick search in there and then get out. I'm going to help the hose line get in place because we have all that clean air on the bottom that I can stay underneath, get my jobs done before I have to start putting my BA on. So for me, this one's a go. A roof fire. So we have one of our houses. The name's fetching, I think it's called. The roof is on fire, probably from an ember or someone screwing around. Going through the risk management. So now for me, this scenario, I'm a chief arriving later. The risk I see is collapse. This roof collapsing because it's on fire. My analysis is it's going to take at least 60 to 120 seconds for that to happen. So when I evaluate my risk, the severity is high because if it collapses, it can trap someone and we're going to get burned, we're going to suck in fire, and that could possibly injure or kill us. But the probability in the next 60 seconds is medium to low. Because my reward is someone's life inside that house, I'm going to take that risk. I'm going to go in there. Since it's a smaller house, I can search that whole house in 10 seconds and then get out. For me, this one is a go. I'm going to get in there until get that search done and then start getting water on that thing. Structure fire with exposures. So looking at it here, again, I'm a later arriving chief. Now I have time. I have past that 5 minutes. I'm going to evaluate that this bottom area here is commercial, right? Those are shops, it looks like. And up top here is residential. Someone's living up there. So I'm going to identify my risks, right? My risk is this fire going up into that residential area and spreading to the other structures nearby. Analyzing is my analysis, my prediction of the future is that someone can get trapped up here, or we can have increased damage to the entire city block by spread of this fire. You're okay. You're okay. The evaluation of it is in the next 60 seconds, because the size of this fire is fairly low, I can search those residential areas and I can do some offensive hose management. I can get a line in there and start knocking this fire down because it's fairly low. This one is a go for me. I'm going to search those residential areas, start getting people out, and start getting a line in there to start knocking this fire down. So it's 6:56 now. I went too long. In my opinion, I went too long. So I understand we didn't go over a lot of individual go, no goes because I want to give you guys a format to go back to your department, sit down and have a process to develop it yourself. You have the 5-step risk management process. You have the 7-step decision method, and you have the recognition prime decision making. Now this is on you guys. Take this back to your departments. Sit down around the kitchen table and start playing out scenarios. That is what I do every single day that I am on duty. I sit my guys down and I go, hey, if this building caught fire, what are we going to do? And we have the time. We have the subject matter experts available to start going through it, nitpicking, and start developing what the risks are, what the rewards are, and start creating cue recognition and pattern recognition. It's on you guys now. You have the format, you have the system. Now you guys go back and start developing your own go, no go decisions based off your equipment, your PPE, your structures, your staffing, your company layouts, as far as engine companies, truck companies. It's on you guys now. So 6:57, I'm stopped talking. I'll let Mike get back in here. Sorry I talked too long.
No, man, that was great. Great presentation. Lots of great information there. A great structure to build on, take that and work on that decision-making process. At this point in time, we're going to wrap up the formal portion of our training. I want you guys to stick around, though. We're going to take some questions. Jeff's got a little bit of time, so we're gonna talk things through a little bit. But we're going to wrap up the formal portion with a big thanks to Jeff Jacobs. Great job today. Appreciate you. We'll get those updated slides from you, and we'll put out these slides on the WhatsApp groups and things like that, so folks can review some of this information. So thank you, Jeff, for taking the time out. Thank you to you all for joining us for today's session, and we hope to see you all again next week.